High above the city, inside a sterile conference room, a man and a woman faced off. Outside, the staff were watching. A pink-haired staff member whispered, her curiosity piqued. Who is that woman with him? Her black-haired colleague sighed. That's Xiao Yi's girlfriend. And she's here to break his heart, the pink-haired girl gasped. Right here at the company? That's unbelievably cruel. The nerve on her. Inside, the woman's voice was like ice. I can't waste my life with a useless man like you. He could only ask, why? Her face twisted in rage. Your pathetic existence disgusts me. The words struck him silent. She scoffed, revealing her true intentions. I only gave you the time of day because I saw your potential for cultivation. Even though you couldn't get into a decent cultivation university, you were still the descendant of a fallen cultivator family. But all this time together, and your pitiful lineage is still completely dormant. You wasted 3 months of my youth, she shrieked. I missed out on so many immortal heirs because of you. He felt himself shrink under her gaze. But I emptied my savings for you, all those spirit stones, all those spiritual jewels. Mentioning his sacrifice only seemed to fuel her rage. That trash? She sneered. The spiritual energy in them was practically non-existent. She flaunted a new earring. Unlike this gift from young Master Li, it's overflowing with spiritual energy. It dispels evil, protects the body, and even enhances my beauty. Outside, a sharp crack echoed through the office as the pink-haired girl crushed her mouse into dust. The sound drew the ex-girlfriend's attention. You've gone too far, the staffer roared, pointing a trembling finger. Her friend quickly pulled her back. Calm down, we haven't even hit our monthly KPI. This isn't our battle. But then, Xiao Yi's quiet voice cut through the tension. The enraged ex-girlfriend spun back to face him. Then return everything I ever gave you, he stated calmly. A firestorm of rage erupted within her. She shot up from her chair, her body trembling. May you be a loser for your entire life, she cursed, and may you die a horrible, lonely death. With that, she stormed towards the door. You can just mail them if it's inconvenient, he called out. I'd rather throw them in the river, she screamed back. Which river? He asked. It would be a real shame to throw them away. The pink-haired girl couldn't help but smile. This guy was actually pretty interesting. Stop staring, her friend warned. If you slack off any longer, the manager's going to pop out of nowhere. As if summoned by her words, a shadow fell over them. What are you doing? It was the manager of the cultivation department, Jiang Jian. His cold eyes swept over them. Have you finished the key performance indicators for this month? She froze, unable to answer. Jiang Jian's gaze landed on the slumped Xiao Yi. The pink-haired girl quickly explained, his girlfriend just left him. He's just a bit down. He'll be fine soon. The manager didn't say another word. Later that day, Xiao Yi sat alone on the edge of the roof. A voice interrupted his thoughts. Have you eaten? He turned to see Jiang Jian standing behind him. In a bad mood? The manager asked, offering him a drink. Relax. Xiao Yi was baffled. This was the man who usually glared at him like he was dirt. And now, out of nowhere, he was being kind. Before he knew it, the can was empty, and the world began to spin. He stumbled to his feet, arms spread wide, roaring to the sky. She ate my food, drank my drinks, spent all my money, and then she cheated on me. I hope she dies, he screamed. The release felt incredible. He looked at his manager with genuine gratitude. I never thought someone so cold could care so much about his subordinates. But a sudden wave of dizziness washed over him. He realized with a jolt. There was something in the soda. He glanced at the can, and in its reflection, he saw the manager's devilish grin. Darkness consumed him. Hours later, his head felt like it was splitting apart. When he pried his eyes open, he was chained to the edge of a cliff. A figure watched him. It was Jiang Jian. Manager, is there some kind of mistake? Xiao Yi asked. Jiang Jian began to speak, but Xiao Yi cut him off. Look, I'm not into S&M. Annoyance flashed across the manager's face before he landed a solid punch. You think this is a joke? Look down and understand the gravity of your situation. Xiao Yi peered into the dark pit below, and a pair of colossal eyes stared back from the abyss. The creature moved, its monstrous form emerging from the shadows. A dragon! Divine Dragon Lord, Jiang Jian proclaimed. I present to you this sacrifice. Though this waste of space has yet to awaken his power, his body still possesses the spiritual root of an ancient lineage. He will be far more delicious than the simple sheep and pigs we usually bring you. In exchange, a glowing orb flew from the dragon to the manager. The condensation pill! Jiang Jian trembled with excitement. His major breakthrough was at hand. He turned and left to begin his cultivation. The great dragon then fixed its ancient gaze upon Xiao Yi. Mortal, do you have any last words? Haye glared into the maw of the beast and told the divine dragon its breath was foul. He even suggested it brush its teeth before the meal. The dragon's ancient pride roared at his insolence. It bellowed that it was the lord of the clouds, the master of the 9 heavens, the bearer of thunder, and the rider of the 4 seas. It had spent 3,000 years in silent cultivation, 80,000 years roaming the heavens. But then, a flicker of shame. It lost its composure over a mere mortal. A disgrace. The dragon seized Haye. Normally, a sacrifice was swallowed in one gulp, but this one deserved special treatment. It would chew him, piece by agonizing piece. "You can't!" Haye screamed. The dragon sneered. "It's too late for begging. It's not that," Haye clarified. "I have athlete's foot. Your breath will only get worse." He warned that the stench would be unbearable, a foul odor that would cling forever. Like morning breath, mixed with his ex-girlfriend's stinky socks. "Silence!" The dragon roared and chomped down. Half of Haye's body was gone. "That stings a bit," he grunted, his face a mask of excruciating pain. A mark on his hand flared to life. Just before the dragon devoured him completely, the forbidden art of his bloodline had been activated. First, the light of life and death. It carves a death mark on the enemy and on himself. Now, they would share the exact same pain, the exact same damage. As long as the curse didn't kill him instantly, his body would endlessly revive. The next skill was dual annihilation. Once this art is invoked, both bodies bound by the life and death curse will perish together. Without the intervention of supreme immortal magic, neither has any chance of revival. The spell cannot be blocked or interrupted. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the vision. "Hey, what kind of nonsense are you spouting?" He opened his eyes. Two. To find himself in a classroom, the teacher demanded he recite the 7 arts of body refinement, not babble about life and curses. The teacher wondered aloud if he'd taken too much refinement medicine, causing these wild hallucinations. The entire class erupted in laughter. Meanwhile, in the faculty room, a teacher questioned Professor Yin about the new transfer student he'd accepted. She figured the student must possess incredible talent for the professor to bend his high standards. He simply replied that the boy had other talents. In reality, he'd received a very generous bribe. He figured the boy would fail the first monthly exam anyway, so why not profit from it? Back in class, everyone viewed Haye as a useless joke. The laughter continued to echo. But Haye was completely unbothered. He was too busy wondering what kind of fate the heavens had truly given him. After being devoured by the dragon, he had awoken in his own bed, and the spiritual root, dormant for 20 long years, had finally awakened. The mocking words of his ex-girlfriend replayed in his mind, calling him the last descendant of a dying cultivator family. Suddenly, a foot slammed down on his desk. A bully loomed over him, laying down the class rules. "Once a week, you'll hand over 1 bottle of body refinement pills, 1 of Peiyuan pills, and 1 dose of Guban potion." The other students watched on, recognizing the scene. John Jabai was educating another newbie. To them, this was a show worth watching. Haye simply asked, "Why should I? And why are you stepping on my desk?" Jabai sneered, "This is my territory. I'll step wherever I please. Besides," he boasted, "I jump from here. Only weaklings use the stairs." As he left, he delivered a final threat. "If I don't have the goods by this afternoon, you'll be tied to the school's front light pole for everyone to see." Haye watched the bully's foot step out the window, and a wicked thought crossed his mind. Our hero simply slapped the bully's leg, sending him tumbling out of the window to land squarely on his face. What a beautiful scene. Their classmates rushed to the window, staring in disbelief. He had actually slammed face first into the ground, but they weren't worried. He practiced the 100-fold refined steel technique. A fall like that definitely wouldn't kill him. Some even hoped he would die so their class rank would go up. After a few minutes, Jabai staggered to his feet. "Don't you move!" he roared. "I'm gonna break both of your legs." The green-haired guy in front of Haye turned around. "You're screwed," he whispered. "Jabai is the class tyrant. He's never been beaten." He explained that Jabai's family was a powerful academic cultivation clan in the city. "His body refinement is at an insane level," he added. "The last student who crossed him, his entire family was ruined and left for dead. You can run, but you can't hide," he warned. He then gave him a tip: avoid Guji Alley after class. That was their favorite spot to ambush people. But for Haye, it was the only path home. As dusk fell, he found himself standing before the alley's ominous entrance. In a secluded alley, 3 men laid in wait. One of them questioned their boss, Jabai, wondering if all 3 were truly needed for a single trash transfer student. Another lackey scoffed, claiming the boss could crush the boy with 1 hand. But such a task was beneath him. It was a job for his underlings. Jabai smirked. The little bastard was probably trembling in fear, desperately searching for a way to avoid this very alley. But it was useless. He had men posted in every direction. There was no escape. The bald underling shot him a thumbs up, praising his flawless planning. But suddenly, a voice cut through the air. "Who told you I was going to hide?" Haye had arrived, walking straight towards them. They stared in disbelief. He actually walked right into their trap. They figured he knew escape was impossible, so he chose to accept his fate. Jabai watched him approach, noting the complete absence of fear in the boy's eyes. What was this kid plotting? A rare thought crossed his mind. Could this be one of those legendary types who conceals their true power, feigning weakness for a surprise attack? Haye called them out. Too cowardly to even confront me at the school gates, huh? Instead, you pick some remote alley to set an ambush. You have no idea how much trouble it was to find this place. So hurry up and bring it, he taunted. Provoked, one of the lackeys lunged forward, his kick sending Haye flying into a wall with a sickening crunch. They were stunned by how weak he seemed, especially after his arrogant display. Jabai relaxed, convinced he was just overthinking. This kid was a total rookie. He collapsed to the ground, his face a mask of blood. The bully loomed over him. That was a kick from the 5th level of body refinement. Your internal organs are surely ruptured. You don't have long to live. But Haye, through a bloody grin, simply replied, "That didn't hurt at all. You call that a 5th level refinement?" It felt as weak and pathetic as a loser who's drained his own essence 100 times over. The bully's face contorted with rage. He had heard enough. He would silence that mouth for good. He raised his leg, aiming to smash the boy's skull. When a spray of crimson painted the alley, he froze in utter confusion. Jabai and the bald man watched in horror as their comrade's severed legs spun through the air, landing in front of them with a wet thud. The man fell, screaming in agony. His stump gushed blood while Haye laughed maniacally. In that moment, a woman appeared from thin air, standing protectively before him. Jabai couldn't comprehend it. She had materialized in the blink of an eye. The bald man, ignoring the impossible, attacked her from behind. "Don't use a lethal move," Jabai screamed. "You'll destroy the entire block." But it was too late. He unleashed his ultimate technique, death by purple gold club. A massive explosion tore through the area. The idiot had leveled all the nearby buildings. His father was definitely going to kill him for this mess. As the smoke finally cleared, the bald man's confidence vanished. Jabai's jaw hung open, his eyes wide with terror. The club had struck the woman directly on the head. But she stood there, completely unscathed. Moments earlier, on a floating island, a silver-haired woman played Chinese checkers with a white crane beneath an ancient tree. The white crane addressed her as Lord Divine Dragon, asking why she always chose to appear in human form. Divine Dragon dismissed the broken rules of the Immortal Palace. Why should they be forced to remain in their original forms? After all, she mused, they might end up like the crane, with a human body, but a bird's head. The crane suddenly gasped. "Was that remark offensive?" she asked. "No, my lord," the crane clarified. "It's because you are bleeding." She scoffed at the joke. The last time she bled was a century ago. She was invincible. But to her shock, she looked down to see blood pouring from her hand. The crane panicked as the bleeding intensified. She quickly cast a homeostasis spell, then bid the crane farewell. As she departed for the mortal realm, the crane reminded her to report this incident to the Immortal Palace. She streaked through the heavens. A strange mark had appeared on her hand. Scanning it with her divine sense, she recognized a death curse, one even she couldn't dispel. She knew instantly. This curse tied her life to someone in the human world. She had to find that bastard. Back in the alley, a rectangular barrier had materialized. Glowing sigils covered its walls, perfectly enclosing the scene. Jabai was in awe. She took a direct hit from a quasi-condensation realm expert without even flinching. At the very moment of impact, she had erected a defensive barrier, leaving the surroundings completely untouched by the blast. He knew in his soul. This woman's cultivation was on a level far beyond his comprehension. Divine Dragon spoke, her voice laced with disappointment. "It's been so long since I fought low-level cultivators. I'd forgotten how weak you all are. In fact," she added, "you are weaker than I was when I first began my journey." "Get away from her!" Jabai shrieked at his man, but before the bald thug could even react, his body erupted into a shower of gore. Jabai could only watch, horrified. His legs buckled beneath him, sending him crashing to the ground. How did this happen? He didn't even see her move. Panic seized him as she slowly approached. His legs were useless. He was utterly defenseless. He was done for. Suddenly, Haye was yanked into the air by an unseen force. The dragoness sounded surprised, to think something she devoured had come back to life. That voice confirmed it. It was the dragon. Haye demanded she lift the curse this instant, or he'd make sure she paid the price. But he could only stammer back, admitting he had no clue how to break it. His answer earned him a brutal response. She smashed him into the ground again and again, the force so immense it shattered the very earth beneath them. She roared at him to lift the curse. Jabai watched in horror. When she snapped, she was a monster who attacked even her own allies. Then, she suddenly coughed up blood. The crimson liquid stained the fractured ground. She finally realized. The more she hurt him, the more damage she took herself. This was pointless. If this continued, they'd be trapped in a meaningless cycle of pain. She decided to retreat for now and find a way to sever this cursed connection. But just as she turned to leave, Haye told her to wait. Her eyes widened as she saw him standing there, fully revived once more. Internally, she cursed her luck. What a shameless curse. Haye then spoke up, saying that since she ate him so casually, he deserved a little compensation. No one had ever dared to speak to her like that. Intrigued, she asked what he wanted. His answer was simple: immortality. Her patience snapped. And what, she sneered, would he do if she simply refused his absurd request? He shot back with a chilling threat. If she refused, he would soak himself in sulfuric acid, dying over and over while she bled out right alongside him. The audacity! He dared to blackmail her. An idea sparked in her mind. She could just freeze him solid and find the cure at her own leisure. After all, she had all the time in the world. But his smirk told her he had already planned for that exact scenario. He taunted her, daring her to try it. His defiance was the final spark. A shadow erupted beneath her, unleashing a torrent of crimson flames. With a surge of rage, she tossed a book at his feet. She spat that achieving immortality in a single step was a fool's dream. It was a basic cultivation manual, something to help him train from the ground up. It was, she sneered, a perfect fit for a talentless nobody like him. While it wouldn't grant him eternal life, it might at least get him into a good university. He would never have to worry about food or clothing again. The cover of the book read, Advanced Payment of Skills. Just from the name alone, he knew this was a legendary technique. He agreed. Raising his cultivation was the only path forward. In her mind, she called him a fool. Nothing in this world is free. Until she could dispose of him, she would suck him dry of every last drop of value. Little did she know, he was thinking the exact same thing. Meanwhile, Jabai was trying to merge with the wall, hoping to erase his own existence. But it was too late. Her cold gaze fell upon him. This was it. This was the end. But she simply stated she had no time to crush ants, before warning him to forget everything he saw here. A terrifying light engulfed him, and he screamed, pleading for his life. The next thing he knew, he opened his eyes to an instructor shouting in his face, telling him to get a grip in the exam room. He felt a throbbing headache. He couldn't remember a thing from yesterday. His mind was a total blur. He didn't even know what he was supposed to do. The instructor announced the first monthly exam of the new semester, urging everyone to give it their all. For the students at the bottom, this was a critical moment. The school wouldn't hesitate to advise them to drop out. The first body cultivation proficiency test had begun. Their futures were on the line. The instructor roared for them to charge. Haye was stunned. A monthly exam already? But the instructors hadn't taught them a single thing for the past few days. The green-haired guy next to him sighed. This was just how senior year worked. Everything important had already been covered in the first 2 years. By now, Haye should have been deep into extra prep classes. That was news to him. The student explained that all the real effort now went into extracurriculars. Senior year was all about exams and rankings. He realized Haye hadn't signed up for a single prep class. He was absolutely toast on this exam. He turned to a nearby fat student, smirking. Looks like your rank is about to go up. The student asked what he meant. The green-haired guy gleefully announced that the idiot transfer student hadn't even registered for cram school. They both burst into laughter. He then spotted Jabai, wondering how that vicious tyrant had suddenly let Haye off the hook. A question Jabai was asking himself. 2 of his lackeys were beaten to a pulp and another one bled out. He had a chilling feeling that something truly terrifying had happened. The first test was about penetrating power. A barrier spell covered the field, allowing them to test their raw, destructive force. The instructor called on Jabai to demonstrate, announcing he had high hopes for their top student. Jabai hurled his weapon. The attack was devastating, blasting through layer after layer of the barrier. The instructor beamed with pride, announcing the result. It had penetrated a 1-meter-thick, 5-layer reinforced concrete wall. Of course. That was the power of the school's body-tempering prodigy. Jabai's strength was nearly on par with his own. The girls erupted in cheers for him. He paid them no mind. They couldn't grasp the true stakes. Even the green-haired student admitted it was an impressive feat. So, how good was that result, really? The green-haired guy explained that Jabai was a campus legend. He was the only person in their class directly recommended to Heizu Cultivation University based on his body cultivation alone. He clarified that this test measures one thing: explosive, destructive power. Whether you use body tempering or sui cultivation arts, in the end, your score is judged by how many layers you can shatter. Most students in their first month can only break through 2 or 3 layers. Jabai's 5-layer result was, by far, the best in the class. The instructor then called for Wu. It was the portly student from before. He took a deep breath and hurled the ball. It struck the first layer, but got stuck. He prayed with every fiber of his being for it to push through, and somehow, it did. He roared in celebration for passing the test. Next, the instructor called for the transfer student. Internally, he scoffed, cursing the principal for admitting such trash into their elite class. He prepared to call out Haye's name. The green-haired guy smirked, expecting the transfer student to be utterly humiliated. If he couldn't even break one layer, he'd be kicked out. This was his last chance. The boy wished him luck, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Haye focused his power, and a crimson light flashed in his eyes, but the instructor only saw him walking up completely empty-handed. He mocked him, announcing, "Well, look here, we have a prodigy who can create things from nothing." The whole class erupted in laughter. Jabai joined in. With a hidden dragon like him, the teacher's senior position is all but guaranteed. This only fueled the students' laughter, but to their utter astonishment, Haye manifested a crackling ball of energy. Then, he settled into a throwing stance. He drew his arm back and unleashed it. It shot forward like a bolt of lightning, tearing through the walls with ease. The instructor couldn't believe his eyes. He actually penetrated the reinforced walls. A sense of dread washed over him, worried it might even pierce the school's barrier. But at the final wall, the energy simply vanished. He breathed a sigh of relief. It had finally reached the end of its power. But even so, he had just shattered the record for their entire year's cohort, and it was his first time ever witnessing a palm lightning technique. He could tell just from the explosive force that Haye's mastery of body tempering was terrifyingly high. To master both body and chi cultivation to such a degree, this kid wasn't just a genius, he was a heavenly talent. The girls immediately swarmed him, saying he looked so ordinary before, but now he was incredibly handsome. One even claimed his talent rivaled the legendary geniuses of the past. He had shown no signs of it before, but now it was obvious. He had to be from some major, hidden sect. The green-haired guy knew he was doomed. He'd laughed the loudest. Later that day, he looked absolutely terrified. Haye found him and asked what happened, saying he looked like he'd aged 50 years. The student stammered that he was blind before, offering to do anything Haye needed. But Haye just said goodbye, declaring he was in a hurry. He was gone in a flash. The green-haired guy watched in awe as he rushed back toward the train. He finally realized that truly outstanding people work harder than anyone else. Haye ran as fast as his legs could carry him, furious. He had just confirmed his suspicions. That stinking dragon had set him up. She had slipped him a cursed time bomb manual. His mission, to master the practice of the black nether palm lightning, and if he failed to finish it in time, the penalties would be severe. They included a sharp deduction in his cultivation and a weakening of his very bloodline, leading to prohibitions. His timer began, 11 hours and 5 minutes. Inside his room, Haye frantically tore through his shelves, searching for a specific skill book. It was one he'd bought online long ago. At the time, he couldn't comprehend it, so he had only skimmed the final pages. Now, he was desperate for those initial cultivation steps. He couldn't just order it again. The fastest it could arrive was tomorrow, which would be far too late. Then he had an idea. Just buy the ebook. But his jaw dropped when he saw the astronomical price, and he let out a frustrated shout. His neighbors downstairs immediately complained, yelling at him to be quiet because they had to wake up early for cultivation. The first time he bought the book, he had emptied his pockets, spending tens of thousands. He was shocked that the price had skyrocketed this much. At this point, he only had 8 hours, 31 minutes, and 24 seconds left. He was running out of time. If he didn't buy it immediately, even a full night of training might not be enough. But his finances were already tight, especially after the 50,000 he had given to the old principal. In the end, he gritted his teeth and bought it for 200,000 wen, bringing his account balance down to a pitiful 3,372.29. He then rushed to the mountains and began the basic breathing technique. With 3 hours, 44 minutes, and 3 seconds remaining, he practiced activating his spiritual energy. The final 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 16 seconds were dedicated to practicing the moves themselves. The forest shook with powerful explosions as he blasted holes straight through massive trees and solid rock. With a mere 32 seconds left, he shattered the final barrier. When it was over, he scoffed that it was all too simple. He never imagined the backlash would be so severe, causing him to collapse. Meanwhile, on a floating island, within a sacred bathhouse, steam veiled everything in sight. The divine dragon was enjoying a peaceful shower when a crimson stain bloomed across her back, tainting the pure water. She seethed, thinking of the precious immortal dew she had just perfected, now utterly wasted. Peering into the water's reflection, she witnessed his fate. He had pushed his mortal shell too far during cultivation, and his life force had just been extinguished. Useless, she muttered. She had placed only the faintest restriction on the process, and it was enough to completely overwhelm him. With no other choice, she began the arduous task of healing him. 1 week ago, on the first day of senior year, Ji's name appeared in the top 10 of the class placement test. The results were posted on the bulletin board for the whole school to see. He bragged openly, having reached the elite class's top 10 with body tempering alone. In his eyes, the other top students were nothing special. A sudden shout from a nearby girl startled him. Her eyes were fixed on the board. Fatty was no longer in last place. A new name was at the very bottom. Hey, no one had ever heard of him. He had to be a transfer student. A cruel smile spread across Jabai's face, eager to show the newbie how things worked around here. Now, in the present, Jabai stared in disbelief. Haye had skyrocketed 10 ranks since the last individual test. He now held the 33rd position. One of his lackeys reminded him it was time for the test to start. They were gathering in the gym. A terrified student braced for impact. A brutal palm strike connected with his face, sending him flying and spraying blood. The sickening crack of his neck echoed through the gym. The instructor yelled for a medic, telling him to rush to the infirmary. The boy's only hope was Dr. Song's legendary miracle hands. Haye turned to a green-haired student nearby and asked what kind of test this was. The student explained it was a test of both palm strength and one's ability to withstand a powerful impact. And unlike the previous test, this was Jabai's specialty. His famous iron-tempered steel technique was rumored to be unbreakable by anyone in their grade. Jabai now stood before this year's strongest striker, the formidable Xiao Haye. He was burning to prove his defense was absolute. Xiao Haye, tired of his arrogance, unleashed his forged steel palm technique. The devastating attack kicked up a massive cloud of dust. He declared that the iron-tempered steel was just an overrated trick, but his confidence turned to shock. As the dust settled, Jabai was standing there without a scratch, mocking his pathetic attempt. Then, Jabai countered. Xiao Haye went down in a single blow. The instructor ordered someone to haul him to the infirmary before calling for the next student, Wu. But Jabai interrupted, suggesting they call on Haye first. Haye, however, was just learning about the existence of open-source and patented cultivation methods. His classmate looked at him, baffled. He explained that all cultivation methods fall into those two categories. It was basic knowledge, which made him wonder what kind of backwater school Haye had attended. Haye replied that it was Municipal No. 3 High School. Now it all made sense. No wonder he lacked foundational knowledge. It was a regular school, not one for immortal cultivation. The green-haired student explained that open-source cultivation methods were available to the public for anyone to practice. Patented cultivation methods, however, were registered with the Immortal Cultivation Patent Bureau. Only the patent holder or authorized individuals could practice them. Anyone caught practicing such methods without permission would face severe legal punishment or even extermination, just like the two who had fought earlier. The forged steel palm was open source, but Jabai's 100 refined steel was a patented technique. An ordinary cultivator couldn't dream of breaking through a patent. Patented methods possessed far greater power, but also required a much higher threshold and were incredibly difficult to master. The instructor cast a basic spell to repair the ruined court, then called for Haye to come down. At last, Haye and Jabai stood face to face. Jabai's heart raced whenever he saw him. He couldn't understand why losing a single test to this nobody enraged him so much, but if he could crush him now, he would prove his superiority. Haye simply suggested they hit each other at the same time. The casual remark infuriated Jabai, who yelled at him not to get arrogant. Haye raised his hand, channeling the forged steel palm. Jabai scoffed at the idea of using an open-source method against him. He activated his 100 refined steel. The instructor watched with intense focus. Their palms struck each other's faces simultaneously, but it was Jabai who was sent hurtling backward like he'd been hit by a truck. He crashed into the wall, the impact leaving a deep, body-shaped crater. The entire crowd was frozen, completely and utterly speechless. The instructor was stunned. Haye's initial attack was undeniably the open-source forged steel palm, but in the very instant of impact, it had been flawlessly layered with the power of 100 refined steel. Not only that, but it was the patented technique of the Zhang family, known for its extreme difficulty. He wondered if this kid had no fear of the catastrophe that came from secretly practicing a patented method. Haye calmly suggested the teacher send Jabai to the infirmary, pointing out that he seemed to be stuck in the wall and couldn't get down on his own. He was genuinely confused when the teacher didn't answer, still lost in a state of shock. But the moment he turned, the teacher's arrogance vanished, replaced by the meekness of a tamed dog. He cautiously asked which grandmaster the boy trained under. Haye beckoned him closer. Then he whispered two words that sent a shiver down the teacher's spine. The Dragon Lord. In the infirmary, Jabai's eyes shot open. Rage simmered within him, directed at that infuriating bastard. A voice beside him noted that the so-called bastard looked strangely familiar. It was Xian. He leaned in, studying Haye's picture intently, confirming he resembled someone from his past. Xian pressed, asking if Jabai knew him. Xian gave a vague hint, but a storm raged in his mind. There was simply no way Haye could have survived that incident. It made him wonder. Did the Dragon Lord actually show mercy? He knew the next exam would be chemistry. He asked Jabai what the main topic would be. Jabai's reply was chilling: poison concoction and toxin testing. A wicked grin spread across Xian's face as he suggested some fun at a car junkyard. Meanwhile, Jabai perfected his forged steel palm technique until it was complete. He later reported to the junkyard boss that every single scrap car had been utterly crushed. The boss praised his superhuman effort and immediately transferred the payment to his account. By not buying a car crasher, the boss saved money. And for Haye, it was the perfect setup to earn cash while cultivating his power. The system then issued a new directive: complete the 100 refined steel training. He had delivered 2,020 strikes. Now, he just needed to receive 20 powerful hits. He pondered who he could provoke into a fight that night. As if summoned by his thoughts, a figure emerged from the darkness, asking if he was Haye. He flatly denied it. He calmly explained that the man had the wrong person. His name was Yin Jian. Miles away, the teacher from class sneezed without warning. How strange to catch a cold while just making a simple slideshow. The mysterious man shouted, "Stop the act! I know who you are!" He revealed he was sent by young Master Zhang to teach him a lesson. This adversary was Zhang Xiwan, a powerhouse at Tier 9 of the spiritual attraction realm. Haye simply approached him. "You should have said so from the start," he smirked, explaining he thought the man was a debt collector. Now, he was ready for a real challenge. Xiwan was baffled. Why wasn't this kid afraid? His own cultivation level was worlds above his. Using his spiritual perception, he gauged the boy was barely at the entry level of the spiritual attraction realm. Could he be hiding his true power? Wasting no more time, Xiwan threw a punch that sent Haye flying across the clearing. He charged forward again, convinced Haye's confidence was just a bluff. One punch was all it took. But as he closed in, he was caught completely off guard. Haye stared back at him, a challenge burning in his eyes. "Is that all you've got?" The forest itself seemed to roar as their battle erupted. Haye took another heavy blow, followed by a punishing kick. Yet even as he landed face down, a strange smile graced his lips, utterly confusing Xiwan. He was clearly taking a beating, his aura weakening with each impact, but that creepy expression never left his face. Deciding to end the farce, Xiwan prepared to finish it with an instant kill technique. Third sequence. A powerful blow slammed into Haye's torso, throwing him back until he crashed violently against a boulder, where he fell to his knees. Xiwan sneered. High schoolers these days are so fragile, yet they all pretend to be so tough. Haye hadn't moved. But when Xiwan checked, he was stunned to see his wounds healing at an impossible speed. Not even a top-tier physician could manage a recovery that fast. He unleashed his final, devastating strike. The impact sent a shockwave of wind blasting through the trees. Through the dust, Haye wore that same unsettling grin. He had taken exactly 20 beatings. The 100 refined steel training was officially complete. In a flash, he looked down, grabbed Xiwan's leg, and unleashed the black underworld palm thunder, striking him directly in the torso. But Xiwan effortlessly blocked it with a single palm, scoffing at such an entry-level spell. "You should hold on to that," Haye replied, preparing his other hand for the real attack. Then he unleashed the forged steel palm, amplified by the power of 100 refined steel. Xiwan took the full force of the blow, the impact sending him flying like a broken doll. He was launched with such power that he tore straight through the trunk of a tree. He finally regained his footing, steadying himself on trembling legs only to cough up a mouthful of blood. He could feel it, most of the meridians in his body had been shattered. He couldn't believe a mere high schooler could push him to the brink of needing to heal. He swore that once he recovered, he would beat the boy to death. But then, something caught his eye. The lightning ball was still stuck to his hand. Sheer panic flooded him as he tried to throw it away, but it wouldn't release its grip. He could do nothing as it exploded, leaving nothing behind but his shades. Haye calmly walked over, picked them up, and put them on. The system's voice chimed. The enemy had been eliminated. He obtained a magical tool called the Dynamic Monocle, which enhances vision to easily track fast-moving objects. He couldn't help but smile at the unexpected reward. The next day, the school rankings were updated. Jabai was deeply disturbed by Haye's impossibly fast rise. He had already climbed to the 18th rank. On top of that, he had also dealt with the thugs Jabai had sent after him. A girl's voice called out to Haye, asking for the secret to his rapid advancement. She even offered to trade precious UN nourishing pills for the information. But from the shadows, whispers echoed. They mocked her as Gao Fei, the fool who thought a losing trade could ever deceive him. Soon after, the atmosphere in the classroom grew tense. Chemistry class, under the stern gaze of teacher Qing Yan, had begun. Today's trial was a display of their deadliest arts, the craft of poison making and the skill of poison detection. In the treacherous world they were about to enter, betrayal was a constant threat from allies, enemies, and everyone in between. So, if they wished to avoid a sudden, ignoble end to their careers, she warned them to pour their very souls into this exam. Before each student lay a series of samples. Their task was to identify the single poison dish before time ran out. They had to consume the safe items, with their final scores hanging on the razor's edge of speed and absolute accuracy. And for those with true talent, naming the poison itself would earn them extraordinary merit. But Jabai had already sealed Haye's fate, his second brother helping him taint the entire tray. He sneered, knowing Haye wouldn't even live to see a dangerous career. He would perish right here. With so many potent aromas mixed together, he knew detecting the poison by scent alone was an impossible task. The tray was a symphony of overwhelming odors: hutunia dumplings, pungent stinky tofu, durian, and fermented bean juice. And any other method of detection was futile. The poison was a masterwork of disguise, perfectly concealed. He placed his faith in his family's poison master, confident that even their own chemistry teacher would be powerless to uncover the truth. The green-haired student felt a wave of relief. This was his domain, a field where he held an undisputed advantage. He began sniffing each dish intently, while Fatty applied a chemical reagent. Another girl even used lightning to probe for the toxin. Teacher Qingyan noted her skill, impressed by her excellence in the art of poison. Her eyes then shifted to Haye, who remained completely still. Nearly everyone else was already deep into their analysis. Jabai overheard and smirked. There was nothing Haye could do but wait for the inevitable. He had no way of knowing which to choose, and in the end, it didn't matter. Whatever he ate, death would be the only result. With a steady hand, Haye reached for the food. Miles away, on a floating island, the divine dragon was idly fishing. But her mind was adrift. Ever since attaining godhood, an endless boredom had set in. Fishing was all that was left. As she languished in her divine solitude, blood suddenly began to trickle from her eyes and nose. 5 minutes ago, Haye had consumed everything on his tray. Teacher Qingyan stared in absolute disbelief. She rushed over, demanding to know if he had lost his mind. An act like that should have been fatal. She was relieved she had planned for fools like him, keeping the dosage strictly controlled. She told him it wasn't lethal, but to brace himself for a catastrophic bout of diarrhea. Jabai's lips curled into a grin. What a naive fantasy. He had laced every single dish with a poison potent enough to kill a man 5 times over. Haye's face turned ashen. Blood poured from his eyes, his ears, his nose, and his mouth. He collapsed, his life extinguished. Teacher Qingyan checked his pulse and announced his death. A wave of panic hit one student, worried the school would become the center of a scandal. But another scoffed. It wouldn't happen. He wasn't from a major clan or a top scholar, just a nobody. Students perishing in their senior year was a grim but common occurrence. The 19th-ranked student smiled, pleased at the easy chance to climb higher. While teacher Qingyan worried about her promotion, a cold fury burned within her. Someone had dared to sabotage her exam. Her mind instantly went to that damned PE teacher, her bitter rival for the head teacher title. But as she seethed with suspicion, Haye stirred. Her eyes widened in shock as she realized he was still alive. In all her years of teaching, she had never witnessed such a thing. She couldn't believe he had actually deceived her. Haye reported that all 5 items were toxic, one containing entic dispersing powder. As he spoke, glowing characters materialized on his palm. Then, he named the final substance, the legendary erending poison. Jabai's blood ran cold as pure dread washed over him. He thought his plan was flawless. He had even used an expert from the Condensation realm within his own sect. He had investigated Haye and found nothing. How could this nameless nobody survive a poison crafted by a Condensation realm master? It was a maddening puzzle. Later that day, teacher Qingyan was in her lab, observing a sample on a petri dish, her aura carefully wrapped around the fluid. It was Haye's blood, and her analysis confirmed the impossible. Every single one of his answers had been correct. She knew that brain-dead PE teacher could never create a concoction this complex. This was the work of a true poison master from the Condensation realm. It had taken her half the night just to analyze it. She could only come to one conclusion: Haye was an absolute freak of nature. Meanwhile, at the new Immortal bookstore, Haye frantically searched the shelves, amazed that such a method of communication could even exist. The divine dragon had spoken to him through his palm, revealing that this was his own bloodline's forbidden technique. She even called him a complete idiot for being oblivious to the incredible power flowing through his own veins. To save him, she had linked their life forces, a connection to be used only in the gravest emergencies. Haye grumbled that such an encrypted message really hurt. He questioned the very laws of heaven. Was there any other way for immortals to communicate with mortals? He seemed to think gods were truly free, but she knew the truth. To mortals, they were walking calamities, strategic weapons of the highest order. Every move they made was under the ever-watchful eye of the Immortal Palace. She had already descended once before, entirely on her own whim. If she casually made contact with humans again, and the Immortal Palace discovered it, powerful immortals would surely hunt her down. He then asked if she could reveal the locations of top-tier treasures, but everything she was permitted to share was already woven into his advanced skills. He simply had to follow the path laid out for him. Suddenly, blood dripped from his hands. and someone noticed. It was the female staff member at the bookstore. She knew high schoolers were under crushing pressure these days, but she never imagined someone would harm themselves right in the middle of her store. Now she'd be the one cleaning up the blood. Again. He quickly apologized, promising to clean it up himself. Then he shifted topics, asking about a few books. She sighed, asking what kind he was looking for. He revealed he was a senior, and his goal was to reach the legendary Condensation realm. He needed recommendations on the best preparation guides, but the college entrance exams were still nearly a full year away. She was stunned that he was already preparing for something as immense as the Condensation realm. He asked her naively if it was a difficult stage to reach. For a moment, she doubted he was even a senior. He lacked the most basic knowledge. She explained that breaking through to the Condensation realm during the exam was a guaranteed ticket into any top-tier university. If he achieved it beforehand, he could even apply for a direct recommendation. She scoffed internally. Kids these days had such lofty dreams but no grasp of reality. She handed him the 3 best-selling guides. If he could master even one, it would be a miracle. He picked up the Condensation Realm Cultivation Guide. He brought it to the counter. It wasn't one of the books she recommended. She was unimpressed he hadn't listened to her advice at all. He immediately began to scan the book. The staff watched in disbelief as he simply flipped straight to the last page of the complex text. In her mind, she wrote him off completely. His methods were backward. The boy was utterly hopeless. He read that reaching the Condensation realm required cultivating either chi or his body to level 10 and the assistance of a priceless condensation pill. The process could cause his spiritual energy to rampage violently, leading to catastrophic injuries. To survive, he would need a mountain of top-grade healing medicines, which were both incredibly expensive and risky. A single misstep could mean death. He concluded his first step was simple: secure a condensation pill from the Jiang estate. At that very moment, a furious voice echoed through those halls. Jabai roared at a poison master, a warrior of the Condensation realm. Enraged that he couldn't even eliminate a mere high school student, the assassin bowed his head in apology, explaining that something went wrong. He begged for one more chance, promising the boy would not escape death this time. Jabai was furious. Haye's score was now 10th in the class. He couldn't stand the thought of that thorn in his side succeeding. He gave the assassin a final deadline: 1 week. If Haye was still breathing by then, it would be the poison master's head on the line. Suddenly, a deafening crash from the roof shattered the moment. Against all odds, Haye had smashed his way in with his sword. Just moments before, security at the Jiang residence was on high alert. A guard on the 2nd floor watched in horror as his colleague silently collapsed. He frantically reached for his radio to report the intruder. But before he could utter a word, a shadow struck him down. Haye leaped onto the 2nd floor balcony. He took out the guards on the roof with blinding speed. And that's when he overheard it. Jabai, putting a 1-week deadline on his life. Focusing his power into a single point, he blasted a hole straight through 2 floors. He descended upon them like a vengeful spirit, his sword already moving, burying itself deep in Jabai's shoulder. This arrogant bully had no idea who he had provoked. To think he would target the new transfer student. The next thing Jabai knew, a blade was inches from his heart, and his life was flashing before his eyes. Even so, he tried to fight back. Jabai unleashed his powerful palm technique to push the intruder away, but as Haye ripped his sword free, he used the flat of the blade to block the blow. The force sent Jabai flying back through several walls, leaving a massive crater in the final one. Suddenly, a hail of needles shot towards Haye. He deflected them with masterful swordsmanship, though the surprise attack caught him off guard. A man lunged at him, wielding a strange weapon. It was a staff with a metallic tip that bloomed and retracted like a deadly flower. Haye blocked the initial strike with his sword, but the assassin pressed a hidden switch. A wicked blade shot out from the weapon, aimed directly at his eye. He dodged just in time, receiving only a shallow scratch. The assassin was forced to retreat. The man's eyes widened in recognition. This intruder was the same high school brat who somehow survived his poison. He had been on his way to finish the job, and now his target had delivered himself right to his doorstep. He sneered, revealing the needle that grazed him was no ordinary weapon. It was coated in his family's ancestral poison, a venom whose toxicity was on an entirely different level. It should have been instant death for the boy. But as Haye's cheek bled, he just glared back with chilling intensity, sending a wave of unease through the poison master's very soul. In the blink of an eye, Haye vanished. He reappeared before Jabai, his sword aimed for the heart. Jabai desperately dodged the fatal thrust. As Haye swung again, his senses screamed a warning. A storm of needles shot towards him from the side. It was the poison master, his pride shattered. How dare this newcomer simply ignore his presence? Annoyance turned to rage. With his potent venom, the boy should be a corpse by now. Yet, he was still standing. Just then, Haye crushed a small item in his hand. The poison master yelled at Jabai to flee. "Run! I'll cover your escape with a curtain of poison." Haye watched coldly as Jabai leaped through the window. He had escaped. Now alone, the poison master prepared to unleash the true horror of the condensation realm. The needles embedded in the walls began to hiss. A toxic green mist filled the room. A cough escaped Haye's lips. He could feel it instantly. This poison fog was far more lethal than the needles. Dark veins spread across his skin, and with a final gasp, he collapsed to the floor. A wicked, triumphant laugh echoed through the room. The poison master sneered. "You thought you were immune to everything? You couldn't even handle my finishing blow." But to his utter shock, a nearby statue suddenly split in two. Haye's eyes snapped open. He grabbed his sword and slashed through the poison master in a single, fluid motion. In that moment, the master knew. He had made a fatal mistake. It turns out, ever since the divine dragon started using a clay avatar technique, she no longer had to endure the bloody aftermath of every fight. But seeing two avatars destroyed so quickly was a clear signal that Haye had stumbled into serious trouble. She decided to peek in on the situation, only to see him cutting down his opponent. The poison master couldn't believe it. A mighty condensation realm cultivator like himself was taken down by someone from the lowly spiritual attraction realm. The blood poured from his wound. When Haye checked, his pulse was already gone. He began looting the body. The items were useless to him, but they would fetch a good price. Meanwhile, on a remote mountain road, Jabai gasped for air. He was completely breathless from his desperate escape. He'd even forgotten his phone in the chaos. He had to flag down a car just to call for backup. A burning fury for that transfer student consumed him. He couldn't fathom how someone would dare challenge the mighty Jiang family. Once the family's assassins are gathered, he vowed, "I will slaughter him and his entire bloodline." Just then, a chilling voice cut through his rage. "Who exactly are you going to kill?" Haye lunged forward with his sword, but Jabai narrowly dodged. Jabai activated a defensive art, his body hardening like 100 times forged steel. But the blade still found its mark, slicing his arm. Blood spurted as he scrambled backward to create distance. But before he could even find his footing, an orb flew straight at his face and exploded. The blast sent him tumbling over the edge of the cliff. He crashed to the ground with a sickening thud. Haye descended like a specter of death to finish the job. Paralyzed, Jabai tried his last resort. "You can't kill me! I'm from the Jiang family!" But Haye's expression didn't change. He swung his sword, and Jabai's head rolled. Haye had to admit, if the Dragon King hadn't taken the damage for him, he would have died several times over tonight. It was almost pathetic. Even at death's door, his enemy's only defense was his family's name. He incinerated the body, erasing every trace. He knew it was only a matter of time. Proof or not, the Jiang family would connect this death back to him. And since he was still using their patented technique, he knew a major conflict was unavoidable. But a grim satisfaction washed over him. His revenge was complete, and despite his haste, he had managed to grab some very valuable loot, the condensation pills. He had obtained 3 of them. He recalled how Jabai's own brother had to offer immense sacrifices to the Dragon King, just to get a single one. The politics between the major sects were truly complicated. He'd also grabbed a stash of gold, silver, various treasures, talismans, and some standard-issue blades. He'd sell it all for cash later. At the word sell, the system chimed in. It offered him a sales system that might interest him. Ever since he mastered those advanced payment skills, these strange system pop-ups had been appearing more often. He figured it was the work of that stinky dragon. And now, using e-commerce data, it had become even more aggressive in its marketing. A sudden thought struck him. He needed to delete his browsing history, and fast. A wheel of fortune appeared, showing categories like cultivation techniques and magic artifacts. He tapped on the sell option. The dynamic mantle, the horizontal blade, the poison lotus, gold bars, all the junk was sold instantly. His account was credited 154,178. Then, a featured item lit up the system screen. The heaven-opening blade. Price, 1 million yuan. He scoffed. All his loot sold for barely over 150,000, yet they wanted 1 million for a single premium weapon? He knew for a fact that similar artifacts sold for much cheaper in the real world. "This is highway robbery!" he shouted. It wasn't that he couldn't afford it. It just wasn't worth the price. He decided to browse for something else. Pocket pants, 50,000 yuan. The description was promising. Durable and tear-resistant. Both side pockets were actually spatial bags, capable of holding countless items. Now this was useful. He spent 100,000 yuan on 2 pairs. His remaining balance was now 954,718 yuan. He browsed other artifacts, like boiling blood, a premium item that cost a staggering 600,000 UN. With this power, the more blood he shed, the stronger his attacks became. He also found an item called Swift Eye Contact Lens for 50,000 UN. It enhances dynamic vision by 50%, making it easy to see even the fastest moving targets. Another useful item was the anti-impact shirt for 100,000 UN. This shirt was far tougher than his own body, so he'd never have to worry about his clothes tearing in battle again. Then there were the grip shoes, costing 200,000 UN. Their soles were designed for impossible traction. When activated with spiritual power, they could cling to any surface. Its true effectiveness depended on the user's cultivation. In total, he burned through 950,000 UN, leaving him with a paltry 4,718, a balance so low it brought tears to his eyes. This sight brought a smirk to the divine dragon's face. She was determined not to let the brat who cursed her die so easily. A voice called out for the Lord Dragon King. A feline subordinate reported they had found a way to finally break the human's blood curse. She followed the cat towards a sacred altar. The cat explained that the human's bloodline was nothing special. Haye's ancestors could only cast their curses on low-realm demon beasts. Those beasts were so weak, they couldn't even withstand the transferred damage. His ancestors often died in pathetic, low-level fights. That's why no powerful sect ever took an interest in his lineage. In the mortal world, he was a complete nobody. She demanded to know how a mortal could possibly curse a celestial being. She was the Dragon King, after all. The cat speculated it was because her descent into the mortal realm had triggered the Celestial Emperor's restriction spell, forcibly downgrading her cultivation to an extremely low realm. On top of that, the boy's ferocious will to survive must have dramatically increased the upper limit of his blood curse. However, the curse was still tied to his own power level. A cultivator in the spiritual attraction realm could only tap into a tiny fraction of her life force. Once that small portion ran out, he would die. Just then, the magic circle began to glow. The cat instructed her to step into the center of the formation. As magic circles formed above her, she cried out. The pain of something being ripped from her very being was immense. Meanwhile, on Earth, the night was quiet. Haye was sound asleep when a faint light entered his body. The divine dragon saw that the blood curse had now taken a tangible form. Condensing power into her hand, she moved to sever the cursed link. But her attempt was interrupted by a knock at the door. It was a messenger. He announced that the celestial minister had summoned her. The cat was confused. Why wasn't the message sent via talisman? Why send a personal envoy? The divine dragon's guard went up. This visitor did not come with good intentions. The divine dragon stood before the grand throne, but the seat of power was empty. Suddenly, a voice echoed, asking if she wanted to sit there. A man appeared at the right hand of the throne. He noted that the celestial emperor hadn't been seen in years. The throne had been empty for ages. He insinuated there'd be no harm if she tried it for a moment. She scoffed, pointing out that every immortal knew that he was the one who coveted that throne the most. She warned him to cut the mind games and tell her why he had truly called her there. He chuckled, remarking that she was as hot-tempered as ever. Then, he dropped the bombshell. It was about her application for promotion to High Immortal. It was rejected. Fury ignited within her. For this, she had given up her territory, her subordinates, and agreed to join his immortal palace. It was all based on his promise that she would be promoted to High Immortal after 100 years. He claimed things were different now, that countless minor immortals were also applying for promotion. If they approved her based on a centuries-old promise, he argued, the other immortals would surely object. He then had the audacity to suggest that she simply accumulate more merit and raise her cultivation level. Before he could finish his sentence, she vanished. The cat was stunned by her instantaneous return. She was a streak of light in the sky, moving at immense speed. Her expression was a mask of pure, untamed rage. The cat knew this was a very bad sign. She approached a cliff and descended like a meteor, creating a massive explosion upon impact. The shockwave was felt throughout the entire forest. The cat was sent flying into a rock and weakly asked if she was all right. Lying in the crater she created, she sarcastically replied that she felt just fine. The cat was confused. How could she feel restrained after shattering a mountain? But her free reign was over. It was time to push that mortal mule of hers even harder. Meanwhile, back in the human realm, Haye was busy training. A nearby bird was getting quite annoyed, unable to sleep. Finally, a system notification chimed. The spirit-attracting breathing technique had been completed. Now, his foundation for charging into the condensation realm was more solid than ever before. With that complete, all he needed was the advance payment for the next realm. Then, all the pieces would finally be in place. Model. With his essential follow-up cultivation now a mere afterthought, he activated his advanced condensation realm. A torrent of raw power surged through his very soul. The concentrated energy erupted, piercing the heavens. Smoke and dust consumed the area, but as it cleared, his eyes glowed with a sinister crimson light. Through this prepaid advancement, his physical prowess, mana reserves, and his maximum health all skyrocketed to unimaginable levels. His divine sense expanded across the land, and his ability to comprehend the world's secrets was sharpened to a razor's edge. He also unlocked exclusive techniques, artifacts, and items only available to those in the Condensation realm. But a price had to be paid. He had to fulfill the realm's conditions. The requirements were 1 condensation pill and 10 superior foundation stabilizing pills, 3 bottles of superior spiritual herb extract, and 10 full layers of the spirit attracting realm. He smirked, realizing he already possessed every single item. It seemed too easy, but he had just jinxed himself, as a dreaded side quest materialized before him. The mission: clear the secret realm while afflicted by the agonizing hemorrhage curse, all against a mercilessly ticking clock. The fine print was brutal. After the mission, 30% of his cultivation and merit would be seized as interest for his power advance. And later, any unpaid debt would incur compounding interest. He had no clue where this so-called demon cave even was. As if on cue, a sinister red glow erupted as a magic circle blazed to life beneath his feet. Panic surged through him. He wasn't ready for this. He plummeted into darkness as the 20-minute timer began its countdown. This was intense, especially with a bed of deadly spikes waiting below. Channeling energy to his hands and feet, he desperately tried to grip the stone wall. He slid, scraping violently, stopping just an inch before being impaled. That was far too close. His very life had flashed before his eyes. Even with a much larger health bar, pain was still pain, and with the hemorrhage curse looming, he couldn't afford a single injury. Suddenly, a mechanical arm shot out from the wall. His instincts screamed and he dropped down, narrowly evading the attack. But as soon as he dodged, another spike shot up from below. He countered instantly, cleaving it in half with a single, fluid slash. His speed, his strength, his reflexes, they were all on a completely different level now. Though his blade was ordinary, by infusing it with his newfound power, he could slice through stone thicker than a man's waist. This was the true benefit of his cultivation breakthrough. Spotting another incoming attack, he moved in a swift zigzag pattern, scaling the walls of the pit. But as he neared the exit, a massive hand blocked his path. Ambushed from front and back, he had no choice but to unleash his ultimate skill, Black Nether Fist Core Thunder, smashing everything to dust. With the threat neutralized, his timer now read 17 minutes and 36 seconds. Just then, a stone figure erupted from the ground. And it wasn't alone. An entire squad of humanoid rock warriors materialized, armed with colossal stone hammers. He didn't have time to waste on these grunts. But just then, the curse activated, and blood began to pour from his body. As he staggered to his knees, a rock soldier raised its hammer for the finishing blow. It swung down with devastating force, but the impact was stopped dead. It was a massive hand of rock, summoned by his advanced skill, Stone Golem. The massive blood loss triggered a passive skill, Boiling Blood, which sent his attack power soaring. He surged forward, splitting the rock soldier in half with his dagger. A new system prompt appeared: complete the Stone Golem's training. He now had to master the golem, using 5 different attack techniques against his enemies. His progress, 0 out of 5. Unleashing the golem's mighty fist, he began the trial, crushing some soldiers and punching others into oblivion. The stone fist rose in triumph. Meanwhile, in a dark, twisted chamber, Jian violently slapped a chained woman, forcing her to awaken. Her senses returned, revealing a terrifying, sacrificial altar. The last thing she remembered was drinking a soda. How could she have ended up in a place like this? She desperately asked her manager, Jian, what was happening. Jian's face was a mask of pure annoyance. His own breakthrough had failed, and the dragon he served was no longer answering his calls. Driven by desperation, he decided to pray to a new, darker deity, offering a living sacrifice for another condensation pill. The black-haired woman, his own subordinate, felt terror grip her heart as she realized she was the sacrifice. She couldn't believe it. She had worked like a beast for a pathetic 3,000 a month, and now she was expected to offer up her life for him? This wasn't in the company contract, she screamed in defiance. Jian simply sneered, clarifying that her contract was with a disposable labor dispatch agency, not his company. The betrayal was absolute. He pressed a cold blade against her neck, ordering her to stop her useless chatter. She begged him to spare her, but just then, an explosion ripped through the chamber. It came from a simple wooden stick held by our hero. He recognized the two-faced manager who pretended his employees were family. With pure contempt, he gave him the middle finger. By this point, he had already completed the stone golem's training phase. Jian's jaw dropped, his face a picture of disbelief. Jian couldn't fathom how he found this hidden place, let alone defeated the mechanical golems outside. Our hero just smirked. I'm not surprised a cockroach like you is still alive. He figured someone had already warned the man just how difficult he was to kill. The man sneered, unable to believe his brother fell to this nobody. He then demanded to know if Haye had his brother's condensation pill. Without waiting for an answer, he lunged, demanding Haye hand it over. He didn't even care how his own brother died. He only ever helped his sibling to save his own reputation and his own face, but with his brother gone, he felt entitled to his belongings. He was completely blindsided when Haye unleashed a palm technique, and it tore his entire right arm to shreds. As the black-haired woman looked away, Zikian's corpse slid toward the altar's entrance, his fresh blood spilled, and the being on the other side sensed it. The creature awakened. A bone-chilling, sinister aura filled the air. At this moment, only 9 minutes and 20 seconds remained. Haye immediately cut the woman's chains. She recognized him instantly. He was the one who vanished without a trace after the company incident. She never imagined he had become this powerful. He replied there was no time to explain, commanding his golem to escort her out. The woman was too shocked to even scream as the golem's massive hand enclosed around her. Meanwhile, Zikian's body was absorbed into the dark altar. The creature's eyes snapped open as its hand gripped a nearby sword. Then, she emerged. Her body glowed with a crimson light, a clear sign she was no ordinary being. The moment Haye saw her, he tried to gauge her power, but it was overwhelming. Her mere presence caused his own blood to seep from his skin. He activated his divine senses to assess her cultivation level, but was instantly hit by a powerful spiritual countermeasure. The exit she had emerged from sealed itself shut. Haye could only wonder what kind of monster Zikian had accidentally sacrificed himself to. Without a word, she blurred into motion. He blocked her sword with his dagger, but her immense strength forced him to his knees as the blade bit into his shoulder. She followed up with a vicious kick. He barely blocked it with his other arm before an explosion erupted, launching him into the cavern wall. She settled into her fighting stance. Haye noted the sheer weight and force behind every one of her strikes. He planned to use the golem for support when she charged again. But before he could act, a blade had already slashed across his body. Far away, on a floating island, 3 clay statues shattered. The divine dragon grew concerned. All his death substitute puppets had exploded at once. It was a clear omen that he was on the brink of death. Haye, meanwhile, was baffled. He didn't even see her sword move, yet he had been cut. He collapsed onto his stomach. The woman closed her eyes as a magic circle formed on her finger, preparing to deliver the final blow. She aimed for his neck, but he parried with his dagger. The impact was so immense it unleashed a shockwave around them. He realized she intended to finish him with a follow-up strike. He gave a subtle signal with his finger, and the golem's hand appeared from a portal. It swung at her, but she dodged with a graceful somersault, creating distance between them. She was momentarily surprised when Haye immediately pressed his advantage, lunging with his dagger. The system alerted Haye to the 99% damage he'd sustained, activating his boiling blood skill. A thrill ran through him. Now he could finally fight her properly. He also deduced that her one-shot move was part of a sequence, which explained why he couldn't defend against it before. He unleashed a relentless barrage with his dagger, which she skillfully parried. Then, he tossed a mysterious orb. She was distracted by it for a split second. As it hit her sword, it exploded, forcing her to use her one-shot move again. He saw it coming. In fact, he was counting on it. The system notified him. Enemy skill has been prepaid. She unleashed Celestial Annihilation. 2 cataclysmic forces of energy collided, causing another massive explosion. When the dust finally settled, both warriors were still standing. But moments later, the mysterious woman collapsed. Haye, however, was perfectly fine. She was stunned. How was this possible? Her attack launched first. It should have connected, yet he was completely unharmed. He mocked her, noting that her shock had made her speak normally. He had assumed she was mute. He explained that, while she could strike first, he could do the exact same thing. At first, he tried to prepare a defense against the final result of her technique, but it was impossible. It required a far higher cultivation level. Then he recalled their last exchange. She didn't finish him right away, but instead tried to slice his neck as a follow-up. He predicted that this time, she would aim for his head directly, and so he prepared his counter for that specific moment. As a bonus, he managed to land a slash of his own. Her eyes burned with fury. But then, something else drew her attention. A massive magic circle appeared above them. A system warning appeared before Haye. Complete the hand signs for the prepaid technique or face divine retribution. It was his first time witnessing the divine punishment one must face for using the forbidden Heaven's Law techniques. Both combatants wove intricate hand signs. Panic flashed in the woman's eyes as the symbols failed to align. Suddenly, a spectral hand erupted from the earth, seizing her arms in an unbreakable grip. She fought against the restraint, refusing to abandon her spell. But he never needed to stop her from finishing it. His only goal was to waste her time. With a surge of power, she shattered her bonds. She frantically continued her incantation, but it was already too late. A storm of magic circles descended from the heavens. This was a tribulation-level spell, and it laid waste to everything around them. But Haye stood untouched. A system notification chimed in his mind. The quasi-condensation realm prepayment was now complete. His required share of cultivation and virtue had been deducted. Instantly, His power skyrocketed to the third layer of the condensation realm. With his new power, fresh system resources for prepayment unlocked. From the smoking crater, the woman painfully dragged herself out. Haye blocked her path, his voice cold. "You're still breathing." She admitted defeat, her voice even. "I lost. Kill me, skin me. Do whatever you want." Her calmness set her apart from all the others who begged for their lives. She was, surprisingly, serene. He raised his dagger for the final strike. She closed her eyes, bracing for the inevitable end. But the killing blow never came. To her astonishment, a warm light enveloped her, healing every wound. Haye spoke, "From now on, we share a single health bar. Let's ascend to the heavens together." In that moment, a blood curse was etched onto the soul of this woman, Long Yin. Any damage she took in battle would now be transferred directly to the Dragon King. Meanwhile, at the bathhouse, a cat slumbered peacefully. Suddenly, the water erupted into bubbles as the divine dragon shot to her feet. Startled, the cat awoke with a jolt. "What's wrong?" The divine dragon felt a chilling sensation, as if another leech had attached itself to her very essence. The system chimed once more for Haye. His advanced payment skill had been upgraded. He could now prepay for magical artifacts and elixirs, as long as they didn't exceed his current major realm. The next day at school, Long Yin made her grand entrance in a jaw-dropping outfit. Haye's eyes locked onto her. Nearby, Fatty and the green-haired guy stared in awe. "Who in the world is that?" Fatty wondered aloud. The green-haired guy smirked. "Careful, that's your sister-in-law you're drooling over." Fatty's face went white as a sheet. "Never. My heart belongs only to Teacher Tao." Haye approached the new girl. "Excuse me, do I know you?" She pointed a finger at him. "We just had a life-or-death battle a few days ago. Remember?" She added with a smirk. "Shared health bar?" The memory finally clicked for Haye. The new hairstyle had completely thrown him off. "Wait," he said. "How did you even manage to enroll and transfer into our class so quickly?" She slid into the seat beside him. "Let's just say, a little bit of gold works wonders." Just 2 days prior, the principal had happily accepted several gold bars to admit a new transfer student. In the present, their homeroom teacher, Teacher Tao, clapped her hands. "All right, everyone, the small-scale tests are officially over. Now, the mock exams will begin. For many of you, this will be your first taste of true combat. You've all studied for a dozen long years. Now is the time to show the world the true fruits of your cultivation. All students, assemble in the examination area immediately. First, Grade 12 Class 1 was summoned. Then, Class 2 began their roll call. Class 3 reported all present. Class 4 was called up next. Yin found the entire spectacle quite interesting. Their green-haired classmate, however, was sweating bullets. "We're going to embarrass ourselves in front of the entire grade." Haye just patted his shoulder. "Don't worry, it's going to be fine." The friend's face lit up with hope, but Haye quickly crushed it. "I'm shameless, so I don't care about being embarrassed." Just then, the teacher began announcing the examination rules. Each class has been assigned an exclusive examination area. The edges have been sealed by powerful barriers, ensuring no outside interference. Every candidate will face the exact same monster. Achieve a knockout within 5 minutes for a full score. Fail to secure a knockout, and you will be scored based on the effective damage you dealt. Should an emergency arise, Teacher Joe in the center of the field will intervene. The air crackled with anticipation. The exam has now officially begun. Will the following students please come down and prepare? From Grade 12 Class 1, Xiao Jiakang and Guo Anliang. From Class 2, Tang Long. And from Class 4, Ryugasaki Hanako. Haye's eyes narrowed. "Why are there people from the Ying sect here?" The green-haired student explained. "It's a mission from the Cultivation Education Bureau. As part of the peace treaty between the top sects, almost every high school has to accept a few exchange students from the Ying sect." Haye was surprised. He knew regular high schools had exchange students. He just never imagined a cultivation high school would do the same. On the field, a girl with long, black hair suddenly tensed. This was Ryugasaki Hanako. Her sharp gaze swept across the audience. Haye immediately recognized her incredible intuition. Annoyed, Yin muttered, "How dare she glare at my master? I'm the only one who gets to glare at my little bro." The green-haired guy sweat dropped. The hierarchy between you two is really something else. Haye was speechless. On the field, the trial began, and the exam monster was summoned in a flash of light. A horrifying portal tore through the center of the arena. An eye blinked open, revealing a grotesque mushroom man. Teacher Jian felt a wave of sinister energy wash over him. His heart pounded. This was the aura of the Cloud Canopy Demon Lord, sealed by the Tong sect. Using it for the first mock exam was insane. But Teacher Tao scoffed at his worry, mocking that it was no wonder he was still just a physical education teacher. Teacher Tao explained that if this were the Demon Lord's true body, even sealed, they would all be dead in an instant. Fortunately, these exam monsters were mere clones, grown from the Demon Lord's spores. While they were at the Condensation realm, their power was far below the proctors, and the arena was fortified with suppression stones, leaving nothing to worry about. A student unleashed a volley of fire talismans, forcing the monster to leap back. The proctor's voice boomed, "Fail to damage the monster before time runs out, and your score will be a humiliating 0. The student who had used the talismans could only weep in despair. Another challenger hurled a storm of rocks at the creature, only to be swatted away by a devastating punch. The student had landed a hit, but the monster tossed him from the ring, resulting in an instant failure. The results were announced one by one. Zhang Guin scored 61 points. Wu Yuan failed. Chen Zhanglin managed 68. The onlookers were stunned. They couldn't believe how brutal this year's first mock exam was. Not a single student had broken 70, and only a few had even passed. They whispered, wondering which twisted teacher designed this nightmare. The green-haired student breathed a sigh of relief. With everyone failing so spectacularly, his own struggles wouldn't be so embarrassing. But then, his eyes caught something new. Teacher Jian confronted his colleague, insisting he had gone too far. An exam this punishing could shatter the student's confidence completely. Teacher Tao was unmoved. If they couldn't handle this, he declared, this would be the worst class he'd ever taught. His gaze then fixed on the arena. Hanako was running from the monster, heading straight for the barrier's edge. He couldn't believe his eyes. Was she actually forfeiting the exam? But just as she reached the boundary, she leaped into the air. She wasn't escaping. Instead, she used the barrier as a foothold, launching herself back with incredible momentum, preparing for an attack. The monster swung its massive fist, ready to pulverize her. In a flash of cold steel, her sword was free. In a single, fluid motion, she sliced the monster into ribbons. Teacher Guyan stared, shocked by the perfect knockout. A full score! The crowd erupted in disbelief. While most barely survived, she achieved perfection. They called her a monster in human form, wondering where this prodigy had come from. Someone revealed her identity. The exchange student from the Ying sect, the top student of Class 4. A lone samurai watched from afar, a smug look on his face. This, he knew, was only the beginning. He had arranged an extra test. Ominous mushrooms now sprouted from the arena floor, connected to a far more terrifying creature lurking beneath. The next batch was summoned. The first name called was from grade 12, class 1, Lijian. The green-haired guy assumed another full score was coming. After all, this was the #1 student of class 1. He noticed his friend, Haye, making a strange gesture, and asked what he was doing. Haye knew his friend couldn't see the system's prize wheel. He played it off, saying he was just waving away mosquitoes, unconcerned with who was #1. His only focus was on which magical artifacts he could claim as an advanced payment. Meanwhile, the fangirls screamed for their idol, Junhao. Junhao radiated confidence, certain he could crush these exam monsters with ease. He was burning to prove that even among the top students, there was a vast difference in power. Suddenly, a black mist filled the arena. The mist poured from the mushroom monster itself. Even Teacher Tao was baffled by this new, bizarre creature. Junhao sneered. No matter what form it took, he would still obliterate it instantly. As he clenched his hand, ancient writing glowed on his fist. He unleashed a punch that sent the monster flying backwards. Teacher Jian gasped at the sheer power. Teacher Tao explained that Junhao had imprinted a magic formation on his arm, drastically increasing his destructive force. With talent like that, the boy was a shoo-in for a top school like Peking or Tsinghua University. But the teacher silently fumed that such a prodigy wasn't in his own class. The impact of the blow had caved in the very ground. Junhao boasted that his admission was guaranteed, and he'd proven the gap between him and the other #1s. But then, the color drained from his face. The teachers leaned forward in alarm. The monster stood before him, completely unfazed. He couldn't believe it was still standing. This was impossible. He knew his form was perfect, his power generation flawless. He decided he would simply do it again. But Teacher Jian's face twisted in panic as he screamed, "Get away from there!" He unleashed a furious barrage, but before his fist could connect, a brutal blow slammed into his gut, sending him flying. He crashed against the wall with devastating force. Teacher Jian rushed to his side, but even as he helped him up, the teacher coughed up blood. He had tried his best to disperse the impact, but the internal damage was already done. This monstrous being wasn't part of the test. He grabbed his phone, calling for immediate reinforcements. An off-the-charts anomaly had appeared. The voice on the line calmly asked for the difficulty rating of the current exam. He demanded they send the highest realm teachers available, as the beast charged straight for them. Suddenly, something restrained its feet. The proctor scoffed, offended the creature acted as if he didn't even exist. He expertly bound the monster's arms with his energy strings. But they had no idea that beneath its fungal cap, the monster's eyes had just snapped wide open. Vicious spikes erupted from the mushroom's back, piercing the ground below. The proctor held the strings tight, but the very earth beneath him began to shatter. A wave of dread washed over him. In the next instant, the entire area exploded. The monster broke free from the dust and debris, only for a massive fireball to descend from the sky. It countered effortlessly, unleashing a spore cloud from its head that met the fireball in a fiery cataclysm. The monster then burst from the smoke. Its new target was the mage on the rooftop, unleashing the assault. From atop the walls, Hanako watched the chaos unfold. She drew her twin blades. The samurai at her side demanded to know what she was doing. She declared she was going down to help. "Are you a fool?" This man, Saki Kaku of the Ryogaki sect, screamed at her. "This exam was arranged to pave your path to victory." He explained that if this rogue monster took out the top-ranking students, she'd get guaranteed admission to Tinua, Ping, or even the legendary Shukian University. But she refused to achieve her goals through such a despicable, cowardly method. She was resolved to tear that wretched monster apart herself, but a strange sensation suddenly washed over her. She clutched her head, crying out as a searing pain erupted in her mind. Kaku smirked. He had just activated a soul-binding curse on her, a perfect leash for this unruly girl. If she'd interfered, his father's meticulous plan would have been for nothing. Hanako had inherited none of the Rugasaki family's cold-blooded cruelty. Deep in her bones, she carried the fatal flaw of her original bloodline. She was gentle, kind, and unbearably righteous. He couldn't understand why his father wasted so many resources on someone so weak-willed. His thoughts were shattered by an explosion on the building's roof. Teacher Tao was sent flying. Kaku realized with horror this beast was at least at the 5th layer of the condensation realm. Who in the world approved this exam monster, he thought, activating a protective astral shield around his body. The monster blurred, rushing towards him at a speed his eyes couldn't possibly track. All he could do was manifest an omnidirectional defensive shield. The monster's attack landed in an instant. A spider web of cracks spread across his barrier before it shattered completely. The beast grabbed Teacher Tao by the neck, a horrifying grin splitting its face. The teacher's eyes rolled back as the monster's grip tightened, but just then, a silver flash intervened, slicing the monster's arm into ribbons. And of course, it was none other than our hero. Let's rewind 15 minutes. The green-haired student trembled beside Haye, utterly paralyzed by the monster's presence. Haye could see the demonic aura had completely overwhelmed him. He was surprised that even cultivators at the condensation realm could be so easily terrified by raw demonic energy. Yin's voice echoed in his mind. Its cultivation is at the 7th layer of the condensation realm. He was impressed by her sharp senses. But she clarified it wasn't her, it was her body. Her physical instincts sensed a powerful opponent and were going into overdrive, feeding her the information. With a press of his wheel, Haye began his work. He erected a powerful barrier around the perimeter, ensuring the monster had no chance to escape. He knew it planned to wipe out every single student. At present, Haye was at the 3rd layer of the condensation realm, but factoring in his ridiculously massive health bar, his true combat strength was closer to the 7th layer. Time to go shopping. He opened the system market. After scrolling through the newly unlocked arsenal, he spotted the only top-grade weapon, and the only one available through advanced payment. Its attributes were exactly what he needed. By channeling mana, it could refine and absorb the abilities of other magical artifacts, so long as they were at or below the weapon's current realm. Better yet, he could channel his own techniques into the weapon, allowing it to absorb and then unleash them on command. He acquired the Cloud Ruin Guide through advanced payment, materializing it beside his trusty dagger. He then turned to Yin. "After I go down, you stay up here as a precaution. I have a bad feeling this bonus monster might call in a friend." Yin agreed, but wondered aloud, shouldn't the teachers be able to handle them? Haye could tell her instincts were sharp, but only for the truly powerful, not the weak. He explained that the teachers were merely at the 1st layer of the condensation realm. Only their homeroom teacher, Tao, had reached the 5th layer. With enough time to prepare a formation, he might just stand a chance. But in a surprise attack like this, he was at a fatal disadvantage, and ambushes were this monster's specialty. The weapon's refinement was complete, now glowing with the boiling blood attribute. By then, Teacher Tao was already at his breaking point. When Haye appeared to save him, Teacher Tao stared in disbelief at his transfer student. Haye quickly explained the situation. A barrier on the outer wall was blocking any chance of escape for the students. He tasked the teacher with finding a way to shatter it, while he dealt with the monster. A fire ignited in Tao's heart. His duty as an educator came first. He fell back, his resolve firm, protect the students at all costs. The monster watched them, spores blooming on its neck as its severed arm regenerated. Haye's eyes narrowed at its terrifying healing speed. In the blink of an eye, the limb was brand new. A trait of fungus-type fiends, he presumed. But before he could think, the creature charged. He met the blow with his sword, steel clashing against flesh. He felt it instantly. Its fist was now harder than before. As its other fist came flying, Haye finally understood. It was compressing demonic aura on its skin, turning it into nigh impenetrable armor. It coiled back for another strike. a blow with enough power to send Haye hurtling through the air. He managed to stop himself just before crashing into the wall. But in a blur of motion, the monster was already upon him. It raised its fist one last time and unleashed a devastating punch. The resulting explosion blinded everyone. "The transfer student is finished," Teacher Jian cried in horror. Teacher Tao shot back, "Then go down and save him." Jian was left speechless. Teacher Tao knew Jian's true nature. He had always been a coward, hiding safely from a distance. The only reason Jian had saved the #1 student earlier was because that student's powerful family had paid him off. Otherwise, he never would have risked his own neck. Jian's guilty silence was all the confirmation Tao needed. Teacher Tao sighed. The transfer student's courage was admirable, but this was a hopeless fight. No one here could solve this problem. They would be lucky to break the barrier before that fiend decided to come for them next. The mushroom beast relentlessly pummeled the spot where Haye had vanished. Teacher Jian couldn't bear to watch the tragic sight. Haye was surely a bloody pulp by now. The monster seemed to relish its victory until a hand shot out from the dust and seized its fist. Both Teacher Jian and the monster froze in utter shock. The boiling blood effect had activated. Now it was Haye's turn. With one powerful swing of his sword, he sent the beast flying across the arena. The monster struggled to its knees, only to see a brilliant light descending from the sky. It was Haye's sword. At the last second, the creature caught the blade between its palms. Haye smirked, activating the dark sword Heart Thunder. A sphere of pure darkness erupted from the blade's tip, mere inches from the monster's face. The orb detonated. Nothing remained of the beast but a single foot and its scattered spores. Teacher Jian was stunned. He'd annihilated it in a single hit. But Haye sensed a chilling presence. He looked to the sky and saw another monster appear. It was almost identical to the first, except for the massive, unblinking eye embedded in its mushroom cap. The cap detached from its head, spinning in the air. Spikes erupted from its surface, morphing into deadly missiles that rained down on Haye. Haye braced himself for the onslaught. The sky itself became a shower of deadly projectiles. The other students panicked and scattered in terror. But with the barrier sealing them in, there was nowhere to run. Haye formed a hand sign, activating the stolen golem shield formation. The students watched in horror. The area of effect was far too wide. There was no escape. One missile was about to strike a student head-on, and it exploded right in front of his face. The massive blast created a devastating domino effect, causing all the other missiles to detonate at once. The student braced for death, but to his shock, he was completely safe. A wave of cheers erupted. They were still alive, but at the same time, they wondered who could possibly set up such a large-scale defensive formation. A technique of this scale required immense magical power. They knew one thing for sure. The person who saved them was destined to be one of the top students of the year. As the shield protected everyone, Yin realized something. Haye wasn't ruthless enough. He actually saved his classmates, even the ones with poor grades who were of no use. When the university exams began, those top students would target him without mercy. Haye's magical power was almost depleted, but he gambled that the mushroom cap in the sky was in the same condition. As if on cue, the cap disintegrated into dust. The monster below gritted its teeth in fury and then vanished from sight. It reappeared instantly beside Haye. Without a moment's hesitation, Haye kicked his sword towards the beast and leaped away, dodging the monster's punch by a hair's breadth. Hao leaped back, creating distance. But in an instant, the monster materialized behind him. He met its fist with the flat of his blade. Dark energy crackled around his sword. With another lightning-fast swing, he severed the creature's head from its neck, forcing the body back. But instantly, the head reformed, good as new. After infusing his blade with lightning magic, he sliced through its neck with far more ease. Yet, the regeneration continued, which meant the monster's core wasn't in its head. The weak point had to be in its torso. Suddenly, the monster's face split open, revealing a single, terrifying eye before it vanished without a trace. It was faster now, impossibly so. But Hao's senses tracked its movement, attacking the exact spot it reappeared. The creature ducked under his strike and slammed a fist into his side. The impact sent him flying, blood erupting from his lips. Then it began to move, circling him at a blinding speed. It moved so fast, it left afterimages in its wake, a whirlwind of death closing in. Even so, Hao stood his ground, masterfully blocking a relentless barrage of blows. His body screamed in protest from the impacts, but his will remained unbroken. Teacher Jian watched, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. He truly believed the transfer student could defy the odds. Teacher Tao scoffed, stating the obvious. It was hopeless from the start. That power gap is an insurmountable chasm. And yet, for a newcomer to stand against such a foe, his tenacity was truly impressive. His raw power alone placed him in the top 10 of his year. Elsewhere, Yin watched the clash unfold. An impatient frown crossed her face. Why wasn't he using the technique that defeated times her asterisk? Hao was being driven back. Step by step, the creature's speed was overwhelming, especially that explosive burst just before each strike. His desperate defense could only parry a fraction of the attacks. Damage taken. 150%. The boiling blood passive had finally activated. He settled into a new combat stance and charged forward, sword held high. Teacher Jian was confused. Hao had taken a stance but remained perfectly still. Had he finally given up? But then, he unleashed it. The heavenly law of annihilation. A wave of power shot skyward, shattering the protective barrier. Teacher Tao stood in stunned silence. He couldn't even scratch that barrier with his full strength, and it just shattered like glass. The revelation crushed him. Was he even worthy of being a teacher? When the light faded, the monster's body was completely gone. Hao acquired a durian fiend core. With proper cultivation, a beastmaster could raise it into a powerful battle companion. A system notification appeared, urging him to complete the ritual for his ultimate technique. He moved through a series of ancient hand signs, completing the final steps of the ritual. Teacher Jian was breathless. He hadn't even seen the final strike. He turned to his colleague. With that level of power, he's far beyond the top 10. He could challenge the very top of our grade. But Teacher Tao didn't respond, lost in a sea of his own perceived failures. Later that day, Hao and Yin walked through a park. The battle had pushed him to the next level, the 9th layer of the Condensation realm. He could now even instruct others in advanced arts. Yin glanced at her phone and saw Hao's name was trending everywhere. He was being called the biggest dark horse the school had ever seen. His admission to a top cultivation university was all but guaranteed. She noticed him making strange gestures in the air and couldn't help but ask what he was doing. He casually replied, "Just paying my health insurance." He offered 30% of his experience and merit points as tribute to the divine dragon. He realized his wounds were no longer healing. The restoration effect only kicked in. Asterisk after times the payment was received. But something was wrong with her. A dark cloud was blocking the flow of tribute towards Yin. He watched with narrowed eyes as that dark miasma rapidly expanded to cover the entire sky above them. The black abyss forbidden domain. A pocket dimension that seals everything inside, making it impossible to escape or to be seen from the outside. A formation like this had only one purpose: to trap a target and eliminate them without any witnesses. A kunai suddenly shot out from the shadows. Hao's golem intercepted it, but the enchanted blade exploded on impact. Yin leaped back to create distance, only to be caught in a pool of dark liquid. The substance engulfed her completely as the smoke began to clear. He was actually impressed by their methods: an explosive formation on a kunai, and a binding art to trap his companion. Clever. From the smoke, Hanako charged forward. She swung her blade, and steel met steel with a deafening clang. Her next strike was precise, but as it connected with his hand, he saw she'd struck with the back of her sword. Realizing her intent, he let his own sword fall. "My father ordered your death," she confessed. "He sees you as a rival on my path to a higher university. But this is not how I choose to win my battles." She laid out her terms. She would take his weapon and declare him dead, on the condition that he vanishes from the country and gives up all hope of entering college. Otherwise, the moment he appears at school, especially at the top of the ranks, the assassins of the Ying clan will never let him go. As she spoke, her sword began to glow. A system notification flashed in his mind. The post-payment mission for the cloud-rending blade had just been triggered. A battle of wills ignited. Suddenly, a dark smoke swirled around them, obscuring everything. "What's happening?" she demanded, her voice laced with alarm. In a flash, she leaped onto a high branch. Her eyes widened. The scenery had completely changed. With another bound, she landed silently on a rooftop. She was utterly bewildered. How did they end up here? He provided the chilling answer. "We are in the realm of past reflections." It was a secret dimension where one can only witness past memories, but never interfere with them. He explained that the advanced blade had connected with her spirit. So, the very moment she took it, she had triggered its hidden price. The post-payment mission had forcibly dragged their souls into this realm of memories. She looked down and saw the stolen blade had vanished from her hands. He told her that the true form of the advanced blade should still exist somewhere within this secret realm. If they couldn't find it, the weapon would never return to him. Just then, they heard someone singing, a song that was hauntingly familiar to her. She looked and saw a small figure running toward a house. It was Tianhua. When she was just a little girl, reaching the door, she called out happily, "Dad, I'm home." But her eyes flew open in absolute horror. Everyone inside had been slaughtered. She screamed for her sisters and brothers. She saw her mother, a sword impaled in her chest. Then, from the shadows, someone noticed her. It was her senior brother. She stared, confused. Why was he wearing the clothes of the Ying clan? What are you doing? She asked, trembling. A twisted, venomous grin spread across his face as he approached her. This was the past, when Tianhua was only in the 5th grade. The younger Tianhua leaped through the branches with incredible grace. She threw her knives, and every single one hit a perfect bullseye. She landed lightly back on the ground. A voice from above spoke. Your technique is already far better than mine was at your age. It was her beloved older sister, Hua Qianjing. But she pointed out one flaw. You missed one. The target behind the other tree. Tianhua simply launched another knife. Qianjing was stunned by what happened next. She threw a second knife, which struck the first one, changing its direction in midair. The redirected blade slammed into the hidden target. She threw one last knife, and it pierced deep into a tree. The impact was so devastating it blew a hole straight through the trunk. Qianjing drew closer, her eyes wide with disbelief. It was impossible. Tianhua had forced the knife all the way through from behind. She wanted to know, did I hit the mark? Qianjing confirmed that she passed with flying colors. Since night was falling, they headed home. Tianhua called out, Dad, we're home. Her father patted her head with a smile. How was your training? He asked warmly. She proudly declared she had hit every target, even the hidden one. While they talked, the sound of a blade splitting wood echoed nearby. It was Hua Jiang of the Hua clan. Qianjing observed that his blade techniques had improved yet again. She turned to their father, concerned. Are you really planning to teach him our family's iron wall blade technique? Their father admitted that he was, in fact, considering it. Although the boy was not of their bloodline, he had served them faithfully for 3 years. From what he'd seen, the boy was polite and simple-hearted. Jiang was the model disciple, always bringing tea, and training relentlessly through pain and exhaustion. He was honest and accountable for his mistakes. The master believed he was a worthy disciple, right up until a sword pierced through his chair. As the blade sank into the center of his chest, he could only ask his disciple, Why, Jiang? Why would you do this? Jiang replied, his kind facade melting away. I was never one of you. He revealed his true name, a scion of the Ying clan, who had hidden among them for 6 years, all to steal their family's ultimate technique. Now that he had finally mastered it, it was only natural for him to annihilate their entire clan. The master threatened him. Even if you kill me, the others in this courtyard won't let you leave alive. At that moment, the door slid open. It was Qianjing. She stumbled toward her father, a terrible wound in her chest, but she didn't make it. He trembled with helpless rage as he watched his daughter die right before his eyes. He was utterly furious. This beast had actually poisoned his whole family. Jiang just laughed. The Ying clan lives by one principle: learn a move, destroy a clan. It's a pity, he mused, that your youngest daughter isn't home from school yet. He spoke with delight about her incredible talent. And as if on cue, she announced her return. The master begged him, Spare my little daughter, I beg you. Jiang just smiled. Don't you worry. He explained that Tianhua's spiritual root was of the highest quality. He would simply erase her memories and adopt her as his own daughter. Then, once she entered university, he would seize her spiritual root for himself and reunite the true father and daughter in the afterlife. By the time he finished his twisted confession, the master was already dead. Jiang went to greet Tianhua at the entrance. He told her casually, I got bored waiting for you, so I killed your family to pass the time. Her bag dropped to the ground, and she vowed to kill him. A flurry of daggers shot towards him, but he stood unmoved. With a single motion, he deflected the storm of steel with his blade. He recognized the technique instantly. The omnidirectional flying dagger arts, a style famous for striking from every blind spot. And in her clan, Qianhui was its greatest master. But to a man who had perfected the iron wall blade, her attacks were utterly useless. One dagger embedded itself in the roof. Another stopped just an inch from Young's eye. In a flash, his hand was around her throat. He slammed her to the ground with such overwhelming force, her consciousness faded to black. He then invoked the forbidden heart-binding curse. From that day forward, she was his daughter, and her name was Ryuga Saki Hanako. His plan was simple: take her to the Ying clan and forge her into the ultimate weapon. When she awoke, she looked up and called him Father. Young then set the entire house ablaze, erasing all traces. They walked away, leaving only ashes behind. In the present, Hanako watched the building burn all over again. She stood there, lost in the memory's haze. Then, a tidal wave of resentment and cold fury crashed over her. Haye warned her not to interfere, but his words were too late. She was already a blur of motion, her sword aimed for Young's life. But the moment her blade made contact, it shattered into dust. Young, still walking away, barely seemed to notice. A faint ripple in the air was all he sensed. The young Hanako innocently asked her father what was wrong. He simply replied it was nothing. He thought someone was approaching, and they continued on their path. He would find someone to teach her the Eastern tongue when they returned. The present Hanako trembled, the memory chilling her to the bone. A heart-wrenching sob escaped her lips, betrayed by the very man she called father. The system's voice cut through her grief, announcing a change in the scene. The realm of past reflections had transformed. It was now an interactive, tangible world. Their new mission: find the key item, the Cloud Ruin Guide. Haye focused on the notification's details. With a new purpose, they stepped into the scorched ruins, searching for clues. She could take back something. A memento of her past. Her divine sense flared, detecting a presence buried deep beneath the rubble. Haye offered his help to excavate it. He summoned the golem hand, which easily retrieved the hidden items. Her eyes fell upon a blade. She thought it was his, but he corrected her. It was hers. It had always been hers. She couldn't understand his meaning. He explained that this blade, left by her true father, was meant to guide her back to herself. Its destiny was always to be in her hands. He also presented her with the blade manual her father left behind. A sword art created for one purpose: to counter the iron wall blade technique. Haye noticed her troubled expression and asked what was wrong. She confessed the technique was profoundly difficult to cultivate. To master even the first layer could take decades, and she did not have that kind of time. Even if she did, Ryugasaki Shoichi would soon sense she was no longer his puppet, but Haye simply told her her long wait was over. She asked what he meant. In response, he gently placed 2 fingers on her forehead, and a surge of energy flowed from him to her. In an instant, every move, every mental incantation of the art was seared into her mind. The breaking blade technique had been advance paid to her account. The system then informed her that the cost for this advance would be repaid directly by her efforts. During the repayment process, 30% of all cultivation experience and merit points she earned would be transferred to Haye as interest. She asked what she was looking at. Haye explained it was the system panel, visible only after accepting his advanced payment. If she refused, she would still owe him interest for the knowledge, and the advance itself could be withdrawn from her mind. Without a moment's hesitation, she dropped to her knees and bowed her head to the ground before him. He accepted her pledge, naming her his disciple. He urged her to rise, reminding her of her new status. As a new master, he admitted he had few gifts to offer, but he promised her a set of enchanted robes in the near future. With that, the post-payment mission for the Cloud Ruin Guide was marked complete. Hanako watched the sun rise, her gaze falling upon the new mark on her hand. Haye had explained it earlier. Through the blood curse, they were now master and disciple, their very life forces bound as one. From this moment on, any damage she suffered would be transferred directly to him, her master. He also taught her about the blade's unique power, the boiling blood effect. The more damage she took, the more devastating her attack power would become. A voice snapped her out of her thoughts. "Why are you in a daze?" Kaku sneered. "Father is speaking to you." Shoichi told them that despite Hanako revealing a flaw in her character during the exam, it was fortunate she saw her error, eliminated those in her way, and even brought him back a treasured blade as tribute. Shoichi smiled, pleased that his years of nurturing her had not been wasted. But the Hanako before him now was different, defiant. She spoke, her voice clear and cold. "There is something I don't understand. I wish to ask you about it." Kaku immediately rebuked her. "Show some respect. Use honorifics." She turned her icy gaze on him. "Do your deeds deserve such titles?" Shoichi's smile vanished. His eyes narrowed. "What is the meaning of this? Do you doubt that my actions over these years have been righteous?" he demanded. She met his glare without fear. "You speak of righteousness, of benevolence, propriety, wisdom, and sincerity. But in the shadows, he committed unspeakable acts. Robbery, murder, arson, and even annihilating an entire clan." Kaku erupted in fury. He roared that every evil their father had done was a sacrifice for the sect. Tying her hair in a bun, she replied with cold clarity, "You understand small courtesies, but know nothing of true righteousness. You obsess over trivial details, yet you possess no great virtue." A moon crescent headpiece secured her hair with a soft gleam. This was no ordinary ornament, but a high-grade artifact that conserved the spiritual energy she used for her spells. She continued her verbal assault. "You care for petty matters, but disregard honor and shame. You fear authority, but you don't cherish kindness." She cast off her outer robes, revealing a legendary horseface magical skirt. This artifact increased the power of her spiritual moves by a staggering 30%. On top of that, it automatically repaired itself by absorbing spiritual energy. Shui's eyes widened, sensing the terrifying power condensing in her hand. He immediately drew his blades, gripping one tightly. He spat. The weak are meant to be subservient, and the strong have become nothing but bandits. Kaku's rage finally boiled over, and with a roar, he lunged forward to attack. But his strike never landed. A swift kick to the face sent him flying from the building. In that moment, Shui knew. She had seen through their deception. The time for pretending was over. He called for his clan to assemble. Warriors swarmed the hall in an instant, facing her down. Capture her, he commanded. The entire clan surged forward as one. A bald-headed man led the assault, swinging his sword at Xiao Haye. She blocked the blade with her sheath, then followed up with a devastating kick to his head. Another attacker lunged, only to be sliced clean in two. As she moved, a volley of shuriken flew from the shadows. She hurled her sword through the air, piercing the attacker's neck. He collapsed as the others stared in shock. They surrounded her as she leaped to retrieve her blade. They attacked in unison, but she blocked their assault in a shower of sparks. They pressed their advantage, trying to overwhelm her with brute force. As their blades locked, another tried to stab her from the side. But she saw it coming and unleashed an instant wall lightning flash. A blinding light erupted, blasting all the attackers at once. She surged through the roof in a flash. An attacker looked up at the hole, only to be cut down in an instant. As she landed, another man saw his chance and charged. His mistake cost him an arm. The next person to approach lost his head. She continued to cut them down one by one. They couldn't believe it. They were all being defeated by a single girl. They tried to hold their formation while the others watched from the sidelines. Those watching were the wise ones. The fools in the fight actually believed they could win with numbers alone. But this girl was chosen by the sect leader himself. Even if she was an outsider who didn't inherit his martial talent. When it came to the way of the blade, her skills were second to none. Okawa Mena, one of the 3 great sword masters of the Ying sect, understood that Xiao Haye's rampage wouldn't stop until one of them finally stepped onto the battlefield. Nagono Nakayusu, another sword master, agreed. So he asked, "Then why are you just standing there watching?" Mena was no idiot. With the other masters watching, he refused to be cannon fodder. Besides, his quick draw technique required the perfect moment. He had to wait for an opening. After some time, the hall had become a graveyard, with corpses scattered everywhere. Xiao Haye was exhausted, struggling just to stand. Mena saw his chance. His blade sang as it left its sheath. He charged at her like a phantom. She sensed the killing intent and glanced back. And in a flash of silver, his blade found its mark. Blood sprayed into the air as a wicked grin spread across the assailant's face. A powerful blow sent her flying, and at that instant, Yin sensed something. She could feel Xiao Haye's aura weakening rapidly. It made her ask, "Hey, do you have no plans to step in?" He was taken aback by her concern. He expected her to be furious, considering he had trapped her in that formation for a while. But that was nothing to her. She had escaped with ease. By the time she broke free, they were long gone. For a second, she thought he had run off with the enemy. But Haye revealed that he had, in fact, planned to help. He erected a colossal barrier around the building. A dome of golden light that sealed the entire area. Yin couldn't understand. His idea of helping was trapping the entire Ying sect, but that also trapped Xiao Haye inside with them. He almost let it slip. That it would be fine as long as the dragon took the damage for her. But he corrected himself, claiming that he would take the damage instead. Plus, with the boost from his boiling blood effect, he had complete faith in Xiao Haye. If things went south, he would jump in. But for now, he would make absolutely sure that not a single one of those bastards got away. The revenge they had planned was to wipe this entire clan off the face of the earth. Meanwhile, Xiao Haye lay broken in a pool of her own crimson life. Mena boasted, convinced it was a one-hit kill. But then, a shadow moved. She rose again, trembling but unbroken. He couldn't fathom it. His blade had tasted her neck. How was she still alive? He replayed the moment in his mind and saw it. A last-second block. She was lucky, but Mena's killing intent burned even hotter now. He lunged forward like a striking viper. She answered with spirit object control. The floorboards shattered, rising to her command, and shot towards Mina like wooden spears. But such parlor tricks were useless against him. His boiling blood surged, amplifying his power by 30%. She met his gaze. "That wasn't meant to stop you," she declared. "It was to force your hand." And then she attacked. But her blade was met with a deafening clang. She was caught completely off guard. Mina sneered. Even without the advantage of his quick draw, his speed was more than enough to parry her desperate assault. She whispered the name of her technique, Breaking Blade. In an instant, her sword passed through his as if it were a ghost, landing a clean slash across his body. A system window flashed in her mind. The Blade of Crushing Momentum mission had progressed. She needed to land the strike 5 times in battle. This divine technique consumed a staggering amount of spiritual energy. After a successful parry, it ignores any defense, striking the enemy directly. But her spiritual energy was dangerously low. the system warned her to recover before attempting the final moves. The masters of the Ying sect, Yuyo and Nakayasu, watched their weakest fall. Nakayasu's eyes narrowed, noticing Shanhui's blade was perfectly unscathed. How could it be flawless after slicing through a man and his weapon? Yuyo was silent, but his mind raced. The girl's power had skyrocketed. In the past, Mena's quick draw would have ended her life without a second thought. He made a decision. We attacked together. It wasn't about a lack of confidence. It was better to share the glory of her defeat. Nakayasu agreed instantly. I'll cover you, he promised. He unleashed his ultimate skill, the sky-rending slash. Shanhui bent low to evade the wave of energy, and in that moment of vulnerability, Yuyo charged. She barely managed to block his sword, but his raw power sent her flying. She crashed through the wall, thrown out into the open courtyard. Her hands trembled from the sheer force of that one blow. But in an instant, Yuyo was on her again, a whirlwind of steel and fury. An arrogant smile played on his lips as he pressed his attack. With a final, crushing blow, her weapon was sent spinning from her grasp. Immediately, she called upon her spirit object control, willing the sword back to her hand. But before it could reach her, he attacked again. Her control over her sword formed a desperate shield, but the pressure was overwhelming. Suddenly, a searing pain erupted from her side. She never saw the second attack coming. Yuyo laughed. Nakayasu, you were ruthless enough to slice the girl in two. Then finish her, Nakayasu yelled back. It's not over until her head is off. Shanhui collapsed, bleeding profusely. Yuyo raised his blade for the final strike, but froze. He couldn't believe his eyes. She was standing up again, and even her tattered clothes were mending themselves. The fatal wound, a gash that nearly severed her at the waist, was healing in the blink of an eye. What kind of healing art was this? Was it even possible for someone in the condensation realm to master such a technique? With a flick of her wrist, her sword flew back to her. The boiling blood effect had now reached a staggering 80%. She took a single step forward, and Yuyo felt a primal fear make him step back. Shaking it off, he charged once more. It doesn't matter how fast you heal, he roared. Once I take your head, your arts will be useless. She met his charge without flinching, their swords clashing in a shower of sparks. Nakayasu watched in horror. She took a sky-rending slash to the waist and could still fight. More than that, she could parry Yuyo's full strength with a single hand. He saw it then. With every wound, with every passing second, she was getting stronger. He had to end this now. He unleashed a storm of sky-rending slashes. The massive attack tore through the battlefield, threatening to engulf Yuyo as well. Are you trying to kill me too? Yuyo screamed. Your sacrifice for the sect will be remembered, Nakayasu declared coldly. But Yuyo refused to be collateral damage. He tried to leap away, but an iron grip held him fast. Shanhui used him as a human shield. The world erupted in a gruesome display of blood and gore. Nakayasu watched as the storm of his own making subsided. Amidst the chaos and debris, he saw that she was gone. But a sudden chill ran down his spine. He sensed her from behind and spun around, slashing wildly. She bent backward, evading the blade by a hair's breadth. Her hand touched the ground, and a surge of power flowed through her. Her spiritual energy was finally restored. The blade of crushing momentum was available once more. He blocked her sword, a confident smirk on his face. You're durable, I'll give you that, but your skills are no match for mine. But then the impossible happened. Her blade passed through his sword like a phantom. He never saw it coming. In the blink of an eye, he was sliced in two. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you check out this next Giga Chad video, and I'll see you all next time. Also, you can support the channel by joining our Summon Club membership, or just by watching. Your support for this story is legendary. Thank you for being such an awesome community.